poor Sam's retired, but they're still teaching organic gardening. Joe used to have a little small spot to do all of his gardening in, and they moved him out of that spot to build a building there. However, they put him in a bigger location, and I go up there twice a year now and give talks for him, give 2 talks each time, and he has a big operation, and it's 100% organic at A&M.
What a change.
Besides that, I was invited to a chemical fertilizer company. I forget the name of them. They were up in northern Illinois. And I was, I guess you'd call it, this featured speaker on organics. And they were going organic. But this is all, out of our area, but it's happening worldwide, really. People are getting smart. They're not stupid. The more organic food you eat, the smarter you get, right?
All right. That's a good one.
Stuart's been in this business longer than anybody, actually his uncle. Tell us about it, Stuart.
Thank you, Malcolm. What changes started last year was fertilizer prices got really expensive. Farmers could not afford to fertilize the way they could before. Home gardeners couldn't afford the products that they'd been using before. So they looked for alternative methods. They found out that it worked. They found out that they could get by with less fertilizer, with no fertilizer. We got so busy last year, we didn't have time to go out and do the marketing that we wanted to. We were filling bottles all the time. And bags. And we enjoyed it. The market is expanding, it's growing. Yes, the attitude. And organic gardeners will drive halfway across the state of Texas, and Texas is big.
That's right.
They will drive to come get products. They want to sit and visit, and they want to share what they've learned, and they want to share what they've grown. And we like that.
All right.
We've had customers drive up and they said, well, look at my squash that I grew. Oh my gosh, I ate so much squash last night. But people have found out that they can grow better crops. They can grow healthier crops with less chemical input, and they are all enjoying it. And thank you all.
And I'll tell you a little secret that I learned years ago when I worked with a great gentleman, Alton Grimm, up in Bernie. And that is that people will come walking in with this prized tomato or this prized peach or whatever else. And I knew full well the only reason they brought it in was to show it off. But when they do this to you, Stuart, you look at them and you say, oh, you shouldn't have. And then they feel obligated to leave it with you. Man, I got a lot of good produce that way. But no, what's changed this past year? A couple of things, and again, I'll have to give Stuart credit for at least one of these, is we now can buy organic products in quantity, which means that more and more people in agriculture are going to be using them. The Grow and Green fertilizer that we sell at our nursery, that hopefully a lot of y'all use on virtually everything in your landscape, he now sells it in 1-ton hampers. And let me tell you, a big part of the cost of just about any product out there is in the packaging. Used to be with Ladybug products from John, you pretty much relied on the bags. Now if you're willing to go up and see the natural gardener, I was told the line of trailers was all the way out onto the highway, and it was like an hour and a half just to get loaded up there. But people involved in agriculture are now able to buy the organic products in bigger quantities, which saves a great deal on their cost. And like we were just talking, the cost of chemical fertilizers has gone through the roof. I love it. I've said that's been the best thing that happened. $4 gasoline hurt us, but man, it hurt the chemical fertilizer guys even more. And I'll go and fill my tank at $4 a gallon if we can throttle those guys down a little bit.
All right.
But that's one of the big changes that I've seen that I think is certainly for the better. The other is this remarkable increase that John started out talking about in the interest in vegetable gardening and in home gardening. And to me, this just kind of puts a wedge, just kind of gets the foot in the door, because now people have decided they're going to grow their, the victory garden for this decade, for this millennium, whatever. And when they start thinking about, well, gosh, we're going to be eating what we've grown, maybe we ought to be a little careful about what we put on it. So then they start studying all the ill effects of pesticides, whether they be fungicides or herbicides or insecticides, all those things. And then maybe we get their attention and say, well, you know, that chemical fertilizer you're putting out there, that's pretty destructive to the soil and to the microbial life in the soil. So then they decide that organics might just extend to fertilizer. And hopefully, what I look for is hopefully a change in the next year is people are going to realize how well organics have worked in their vegetable garden and maybe start applying it to their entire landscapes. Because let me tell you, organics work. I mean, we've got a couple of acres of nursery. We get in literally thousands of plants every week. I cannot remember the last time we had to spray anything, any toxic product in the world. I know it's been years and years. Even if we get something in that has a few pests on it, let's take aphids for instance. Aphids are not really a pest. They may be a nuisance, but aphids are one of the greatest things you can have in the garden, because when you got aphids, pretty soon you're going to have lacewing larvae, you're going to have ladybugs, you're going to have assassin bugs, you're going to have giant wheel bugs, you're going to have little parasitizing wasps that go after the aphids. People are just waking up to the fact that there's a lot of interesting stuff going on out in nature, and I think we're going to see, I think what has started this year, for whatever reason, is going to just expand and mushroom, and we're going to see a great increase in the future. And each of you all who are here, who believe in what we're talking about, you are now deputized to go out and talk to your neighbors, your friends, your family. I love it. One of our suppliers is a fellow who is known to use a lot of chemicals, and he was talking about going up to see his daughter up in Austin, and he was talking about how wonderful, you know, one of these mosquito mist systems was going to be, and her 7-year-old daughter said, "But Papa, would be killing beneficial insects if we did that." And it's somebody sent me an email recently, a bunch of quotes from Gandhi, and one of them was something about if we were truly going to change the attitude of many things in the world, that we had to change it had to start with the kids. And I love it when you see 7- and 8-year-old kids that know more than their parents and grandparents do about organics.
Right.
The other thing that I was telling Bruce that I think he should make a motto on his show was one of Gandhi's quotes, and I'm not quoting it exactly, but said something like, the earth has enough to provide for man's need, but not for man's greed. And I think that just really speaks to what all of us, everyone here and everyone on this panel are getting into. So with that, let's pick a few questions here and just get started with it. And this is one that I think probably everybody's going to want to chime in on. And it is, what is the best way to build up your black clay soil? And let's see, I'm going to start with John Bromgould, and then we'll go to Malcolm, and then we'll let everybody else chime in. John, how do you tell people when they're starting with some pretty poor soil to go about building it up?
Well, you know, expanded shale has become widely available, and that's an excellent product that never breaks down. It's 65 million years old already, so it's not going to break down. And so when you work it into your soil, it's permanent. It's not going to go anywhere. You put a 3-inch layer on top, you work it down 10 inches, and you've opened up that soil a little bit. But then the compost is equally as important, if not more so. And so the addition of compost at the same time you're tilling in the expanded shale would be the second part of this. And then once we have the soil opened up where the aerobic organisms can stay alive, now we begin to feed them. We know that the granular molasses is very effective, the liquid molasses, organic fertilizers, these different things. Soil Activator, Medina Soil Activator, a wonderful product, an early pioneer in feeding soil organisms, is another good follow-up. You do that regularly, and you begin to back off until you do it quarterly. And now the soil begins to open up. And so this is probably the best way to do it. Add the expanded shale, generous amounts of compost. You know, dairy compost breaks down very slowly. Of the different compost, it seems to be the one that degrades the slowest. So that might be a good choice in one of these trying to open up the soil. So get some air in there, open it up permanently with the shale, start feeding the organisms. The organisms will secrete a glue-like substance binding the particles of clay together until you get that nice chocolate cake-like texture.
Malcolm, what would you add to starting with poorer soils, getting them? Don't want to strangle Stuart here, he hadn't gotten to talk enough yet.
Well, I had a little experience in that field. I owned 2 separate farms. The first farm I bought was wore out. It was farmed to death. And I went around the neighborhood and I gathered up all the barnyard waste people would let me have. And I brought it back to life. And we did real good on that farm. Pretty soon, I was doing so good, I was written up in both San Antonio magazines way back then, the SA magazine, the San Antonio, I forget the name of the other one.